If I do not plant next year, that is how many years? At least 2. And then in the 50th, it's 3.
Well, he gives them plenty the year before that all it starts.
He does. He does. Now, in our mindset, and our farmers here, I had some farmers in my family, when they have the great crop year, man, they're happy. Happy, happy, happy. And they're going, I'm going to plant again real quick because I can't look for that next big crop. Hopefully I'll get 2 years in a row of big crops, right? So do you think maybe in that first time, first 6 years went along and man, they got that, they couldn't wait to get out into those fields hoping that they'd get another bonus? But what's God's desire for us? His land's holy. Now, we don't understand truly why he wants us to rest that land, do we?
Other than he said it.
He said it. Abraham. Did Abraham question him when he said, step out and go? No. No. So there's times when we shouldn't just question, we should just do. Yeah. So the Sabbath is faith. You know, do you have the faith to, or would you have the faith to where you could set out here? Now, are we living in the land?
No.
No. And it specifically says, right here in the verse 25, he says, say to them, when you enter the land, I am going to send you. So, I don't think that means if you're a farmer nowadays and you've counted off and you've been farming that field for 6 years that you get to go on a cruise for a year.
But it was his intention that the nations would come to know him and obey him.
Right, it is. Right.
So in that case, they would choose to follow what he instructed concerning the land, right?
Most likely. Could be. Yeah.
In that case, do we know when the next year of Jubilee is?
I don't know. Does anybody know? The next Jubilee is?
17.
Fred, do you know?
There's many that believe that 2017 is.
17 is the next Jubilee, maybe?
And the reason is because there was a rabbi in 1100s or thereabouts in Germany that said that the Turks would take over and rule for 8 Jubilees Jerusalem. And at the end of that Jubilee, there was no one ruling for 50 years, and then Israel would rule for 50 years.
So you're, in that case...
And so the Turks took over and ruled Israel for Jerusalem for 400 years. That's 8 Jubilees. And in 1917, the war ended and they were taken away from them. And so for 50 years, supposedly, nobody ruled Jerusalem. And then the Jews were to come in and take over and rule for 1 Jubilee, and they took over in 1967, exactly 50 years later.
And they got Jerusalem on 67. So, I mean, that's a pretty good sign. It kind of lines up with what he says.
And if this guy, 1,100 years ago, predicted what's going to happen for 500 years, I have a tendency to give a little credit to what he says.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Now, one thing we do see about this and about the land, he told Abraham, he says, I'll give this land to your descendants. Is that really what he meant? Or do we get to be stewards in the land? Because who does the land belong to?
The land is mine.
The land is always his. And the other thing he sets up with the Jubilee is if I for some reason lose my inheritance, isn't it awesome that at the end of 50 years, if I'm not here but my family can get it back, can redeem it?
It's always been confusing.
Yeah, but isn't it cool?
You need an accountant to get all that right, though.
Oh, I know it.
Hey, that's why you made accountants, was for Jubilee figuring.
Yeah.
And I was always curious, you know, with the multiplication of the families, I mean, at some point, you know, I mean, you're, I know that the portions would just be, that's why I guess God knew he'd be weeding them out. Yeah.
I don't know.
You think that's why he's only gonna save a remnant?
Well, they started living a shorter life.
That land that Abraham gazed out upon,
And that's the land that observes the Jubilee.
that's his land.
We're free. I mean, you're-
Well, the way I read scripture is we're living in dispersion. We are not in his, we are exiles right now.
I think one of the neat things about the fact that they get it back at the end of 50 years is that they have an irresponsible parent or, somebody who makes mistakes and doesn't do wise decisions. They get a brand new start.
That, and in this world, there would not be Donald Trumps in Israel. Someone who wants to own everything. You can't, in 50 years, gain an empire, and then 51st year, you start over. You're back to where you started, ground zero. So, and God says in here, I didn't see the verse, but he goes, you're my servants, right?
It's in 27,
20, yeah, read it, please.
I might have missed it, but did you also go over the part where they, for 1 year, have a time to redeem it and within?
We're going to talk about
Oh.
redemption. Yeah.
It may be, I'm not trying to be contentious, but just the logic in my mind says, okay, if we don't have to observe Jubilees or the yearly Sabbaths, then why, wouldn't those all go together with the seventh-day Sabbath, the observance of those laws?
No, I didn't say we didn't have to observe it. I'm just saying we're living out in the land, and in his land is to observe this. That's his land. I'm just saying there is a distinction between his land and the land of the nations. Deanna had a good point. If you believe in him, if you trust him, we should start practicing it all here. So I'm not going to.
Deuteronomy 30 says, when I scatter you out and you begin to return to my commands, then I'm going to bring you back.
Back.
So maybe
That too.
fits in somehow.
We've got to have that faith that he's going to provide.
We wouldn't know when the 50th year was, correct?
And we don't know when it is because we're in dispersion. We are lost sheep out here, and we're waiting for our Redeemer to come and bring us in and instruct us and get us back into order. Because God is a God of order to the T. So let's keep going. Let's get into redemption here a little bit.
Really quickly, I have a question. Did he, just say it was a Jubilee year, like you were saying, you really don't. It's the 49th year, so you wouldn't do it then because that's a Sabbath, and then it's the 50th year, so you wouldn't have your crops then, and then you said another one because it takes a year to have it, so you have to really trust him. But meanwhile, I'm just saying, does he put more emphasis on doing something else? You know what I'm saying? Like, if all your time and energy is so focused to, having these crops in the fields and bringing them in, I grew up on a farm and I know it's
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot, it consumes your life, but I'm just saying, is there something in particular that he's saying, this is what you should do that year? Maybe
He didn't say.
But if we're, you could at least make a point that it's a Sabbath. So what do you do on a Sabbath? Only now instead of for 1 day, you have a year of Sabbath, and basically a year of rest that you dedicate to him. It's at least a thought.
You don't have to kindle a fire
No, but instead of focusing on your own during that Sabbath time, if you're free from your land or from that task, what are we more focused, able to focus on?
Him,
Him and
his work,
what is his work?
taking it to the other people,
To-
those outside.
Living Torah. In other words, taking care of our neighbors. So it gives us more time to do all that good stuff. Okay, so Jim, you said you want to talk more about redemption, so now I've given you some time, so.
I don't wanna, I'm not
I'm
teaching.
ready.
I want more, I want discussion because it's a concept that I see making reference to where you have a kinsman redeemer, he's redeeming his family, he's redeeming land, there's all kinds of things that can be redeemed. I'd just like to get clearer on what the concept of redeeming really means. I mean, the best I can do is like no tiki, no washi, you know? You got a ticket, here, you can get your wash back. You can redeem this ticket for what it's worth, you know? I mean, that's the simplest, but the kind of the only way we use it now. I mean, I don't go to redeem my land anymore. I don't, hey, wait, you've had that car for, 7 years, give it back to me now, or whatever, I don't know.
Well, in some of this situation here, as far as if in the land, if somebody becomes a slave to his brother out of poverty.
Right.
In other words, he's not making ends meet. And this makes another point here. We have to work to eat.
Well, you should have said, if the man doesn't work, he won't eat.
Right. Now, so, and we are our brother's keeper, but here it said that if a brother really gets, he had to sell himself. He just didn't get a free ticket
Right.
on the deal, which I
Yeah.
thought was interesting.
You don't charge him more, you don't
charge
get
him
charged, you
interest,
don't give him less.
And you treat him
Yeah.
well,
Right.
but during his time of despair, you work him.
Yeah.
I think that sometimes our concept of redeemed because of our whole New Testament mindset, that we equate redeemed with salvation. And so I think there's, yes, I'm not saying it doesn't have to do with that, but I'm saying there's something different as well. It's restoration is a type of redeemed. If I leave my Bible on the chair, it's lost to me, and I've gone off and lost it. But if you pick it up, find it, and give it back to me, you've redeemed it. It's been redeemed back into me. And I think the restoration is so much of what the redemption is talking about here. It's restoring it back to the person that had it. It may not even be in perfect condition, but it's redeemed, it's restored.
It would fit with the land.
It fit with the land.
I mean, you let it rest to redeem it, you restore it.
Well, let's carry that concept. Let's talk about that. Y'all agree we're living in dispersion right now. As they're 2 years out, they're about to go into the land. Was there supposed to be, from this point on, another saving or salvation? No. The promise was what? The covenant with Abraham is what? And he will dwell with us in that land because it's holy, right? So his desire all along is to have a kingdom of believers, children, to dwell with. Isn't that what he's about to do here? Okay. Problem. Somebody messed up. Who messed up?
The people.
The people. What did they fail to do?
Trust Sabbaths.
To trust. They didn't trust. So, based on Burley's idea, something that's been displaced being returned, are we displaced? Because of our stiff neck? Okay. Salvation is redemption, yes. To restore us to where?
Promise.
To his kingdom. What is his kingdom? What they were about to go into. That's the way I see it. So when we're saved, there is a kinsman redeemer. Who is our kinsman redeemer? Because this, I saw this, it says right down here in verse 47 of 25, if an alien or a temporary resident among you becomes rich and one of your countrymen becomes poor and sells himself to the alien living among you or a member of the alien's clan, he retains the right of redemption after he has sold himself. One of his relatives may redeem him. Now, When God kicked us out of the land, our forefathers out of the land, we were sold into bondage, we were sold into slavery. We became the slaves of the nation in which we were scattered. Does that sound? Yeshua came and he died on that cross to redeem us. He paid the price to bring us back, to have the right to bring us back out of the land. Into the land. Back to the land. And, is that too far? Yes, ma'am.
Just wanted to read the definition of redeem. There's a lot of meanings to this, 9 of them. Number 1, to recover ownership of by paying a specified sum. 2, to pay off, like a promissory note. 3, to turn in and receive something in exchange, like example is coupons. Number 4, to fulfill. Number 5, to convert, like into cash, like redeemed stocks. 6, to set free, rescue, or ransom. 7, to save from a state of sinfulness and its consequences. See synonym save. 8, to make up for. 9, to restore the honor, worth, or reputation of.
So doesn't that definition fit what we just talked about? We're living in dispersion. He redeemed us. Now, why did he have to pay the price? His life, by giving his life.
God has to keep his promises.
Right, but
He
there,
forced Israel.
right, but there was a covenant made. And you've got to understand the law of the covenant. What did Abraham do when he made this covenant with God?
Took a nap.
He took a nap.
He
But,
took a nap.
but he basically put his life up. Now, Yeshua took his place in that covenant,
That's exactly right.
but it's about a life.
Does everybody here understand covenants? Do y'all know what that meant back in the old days? Let's say that Fred and I wanted to come into agreement about something, and we came and said, we're going to make a covenant. Y'all know what we would do? We'd throw a big barbecue, and we'd take these animals and we'd cut them down the middle and all these blood and guts, and we'd have an animal, half an animal on this side, half an animal on this side. Fred and I would walk through this arm in arm. And then I would be telling Fred, Fred would be telling me, if you break your word, you see that animal right there and what it looks like? You're going to look just like that, because I'm going to cut you up with a sword, or vice versa. Abraham did not walk through that with God, did he? Yeshua did. He knew. He knew he was going to be our kinsman redeemer. That is so cool.
Which is the same picture as Isaac, Abraham and Isaac on
Yes.
the fire. No, the Lord will provide.
The ram.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
And he cut a covenant with Abraham, so when the deep sleep fell upon him.
Isn't God good? He's good. Okay. Any
But
more?
that's why they even say, like what you said, they say, they use the term, cut covenant.
Good covenant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't understand that. Nobody had ever told me that. But
No,
that
we
is so
see it as a
cool.
contract,
Yeah, we just see it as a contract.
and there's,
That's forever.
Yeah, you
Well,
break
a
your contract
contract-
and move on.
So they built a threshold.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they done. If one of them broke covenant, they stepped over that threshold with evil intent.
I don't know if it really could completely biblically hold up, but one thing, the difference I've seen between covenant and contract, inherent in a contract is nothing can change. Inherent in a covenant is you must change
To adhere to the
to
covenant.
adhere to the covenant. You must change. That's why when man and woman enter a covenant of marriage, they are to change by becoming closer to him and thusly closer together. It's inherent that they're going to change. It's not that, oh, you're never gonna change. Don't ever change, but that's a big difference between, I think, a covenant and a contract. Contract, you change something, you broke the contract, it's null and void.
A covenant is the goal to attain.
There's a goal inherent in a covenant, yeah.
So could you really, I mean, one could say it's really a covenant of never life and death.
Absolutely.
It's that deep.
It is deep. It's either adhere to it
Or death.
or death.
Yeah.
And it included all the generations to follow.
That's right. It's a lifetime covenant.
Yeah.
It is a lifetime covenant. So what we have to understand is he's bringing us into his presence, which is holy. And we found out from past, and they saw Abu and
Nadab.
Nadab and Abihu.
yeah, the crispy brothers.
But they took their clothes off of them. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, but
They
they,
removed their tunics and their robes.
and God in his love and mercy says, I'm holy. He's not mean, he's holy. And we can't just come into his presence because he is, our minds can't gather what he is. So all he's doing is saying, be careful around me. I'm so powerful, so mighty, so awesome. I do want to fellowship with you, and in order for us to fellowship, please come to me in this manner. This is the way you may approach it.
And he is true to his word. He always keeps his word and always will. All of it.
All of it. Perfect to the deal. Okay.
To add one thing to your verse 25, if one of your countrymen becomes poor and sells some of his property, his nearest relative is becoming redeemed, Aleph, who his countryman is sold.
Isn't that cool?
Of course.
Verse 25 or what?
It's verse 47 or whatever. What was the verse? It's
25.
25.
In verse 25.
There's a song there. It's so interesting. Once you get the mindset of how merciful God is and how kind and gracious that he is, instead of this, what I was told growing up is, oh man, in that Old Testament, man, he was rough and ruthless. That's why Yeshua came, is so that we would survive, you know.
He was the mean God, Jesus is the nice God.
Yeah,
So he changed.
no. No.
Yeah, that's why he says I'm the same yesterday, today, forever. Right?
So here they are. They're 2 years out. Moses gives these commands to them about the Sabbaths, about being holy, about treating my neighbor right, about when I can plant, how I can harvest, all this good stuff. Shows them the sign of the manna to get them prepped for it. They've been practicing like we practice our moeds. They practice. Ready to the land. So they're ready. They say, I do. And then we'll find out later what they didn't do. And then he goes into verse 26. And this stepped on my toes.
26 or 25?
No, chapter 26 of Leviticus, the whole part of it. He talks about reward for obedience and punishment for disobedience, which he says, if you will observe my Sabbaths, if you will do as I have commanded you, if you will follow them, he says, what's going to basically follow you? His blessings, right? He says in here that if there are wild animals in the land, what's going to happen to those wild animals?
Just nice. They will be nice to the land.
Just disappear. His land and his kingdom is shalom because he resides there. Chaos cannot reside where the Father is, can it? So if I'm living in his land, obeying his rules because I love him, then he is going to take care of every want and need that I have. Isn't that cool? Now, before we get off into the, well, I need a boat and I need a big house and all this stuff. Let's find out what the heart of God is. So let's go over to Proverbs, and I will read this because this hit me pretty hard. This humbled me.
Proverbs
30. And I'm going to start in verse 5. And this is humbling. Every word of God is flawless. He is a shield to those who take refuge in him. Do not add to his words, or he will rebuke you and prove you to be a liar. 2 things I ask of you, O Lord. Do not refuse me before I die. Keep falsehood and lies far from me. Give me neither poverty nor riches. Otherwise I may have too much and disown you. Or say, who is the Lord? Or I may become poor and steal and so dishonor the name of my God. So what's that telling us? Lord, give me today what I need today. No more, no less. That's humbling. That's real humbling.
Because you become rich, then much more temptation.
You get fat and sleek, just like it says in the Song of Moses, and then you forget God. And that's really what the children of Israel did. Now, then we get over into the punishment for disobedience. If it says, let me show you some of this, but if you will not listen to me and carry out these commands, and if you reject my decrees and abhor my laws, and you fail to carry out my commands, so violate my covenant, then I will do this to you. I will bring upon you sudden terror, wasting disease, and fever, and that will destroy your sight and drain away your life. Okay. This is where it kicked me in the shin and stepped on my toes. James 5. Because we're going to see this same thing in James 5, but we didn't think about it. Verse 13. Is any one of you in trouble? He should pray. Is anyone happy? Let him sing songs of praise. Is one of you sick? He should call on the elders of the church to pray over him and anoint him with oil in the name of the Lord. And the prayer offered in faith will make the sick person well, and the Lord will raise him up. If he has sinned, and he will be forgiven. Therefore confess your sins each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. The prayer of a righteous man is powerful and effective. Okay, so here's where it kicked me in the shin. Okay, there's chaos in my life, or there's chaos in somebody else's life, and we casually say, "Oh, I'll just pray for you." Should I just pray for them, or should I counsel in a non-judgmental way? Let me explain. I see that you've come to me, and I see that you're going through this issue. You wish for me to pray for you. In Leviticus, it says, in verse 26, if through my heart, if I turn to him and go to him, keep his commands, what's he going to do, Jim?
Bless us.
He'll bless you.
And even the wild animal he
He'll
will shoo out,
Yeah,
won't he?
he'll hear your voice.
Okay, so my question is to this person that has come for me in prayer, and yes, we should pray for them, is this. Where are you in your walk with the Father? Are you wanting me to pray for you so that your walk with your Father will improve so that he will heal you? Or is it your desire to continue living the way you are living and still receive the benefit from the Father? You see the problem?